Hello, lovelies. It's Lily from the future. The first 2 minutes of the audio of this podcast are a little rough because I had the microphone way too close to my face. But at around 2 minutes, I remember, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't yell into the microphone, and I pull it back from my face. So if you skip ahead like 2 or so minutes, you won't miss anything too important, and the audio will be much better. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Zappin' and Yappin'. Episode 4? I don't know. I think it's episode 4. It's either 4 or 5. Sound off in the comments. Thank you for listening to Zappin' and Yappin'. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Now, hi. It's been a while. I'm here in the electrologist's office getting my cake pop bag zapped. My electrologist is snickering at me already. Welcome. Hello. You might be asking yourself, Lily, why are you in the electrologist chair? Aren't you supposed to get bottom surgery? To which I say, I still am, but it got delayed a little bit because I had hair regrow. And so here I am back in the electrologist chair once again. I'm not happy about it. It doesn't feel good. I mean, electrolysis is painful, but might as well make the best of it. And I've been here for a little while. We're already like deep into the zapping. But I was talking to my unnamed electrologist. We were talking about theme parks, and she asked, "Hey, what theme parks did you go to as a kid?" And that question is so big and so vast, and I feel like I might have answered it on podcast before, but it's a very relevant question now because I am going to Disneyland very soon. I cannot say publicly what dates I will be there because, safety, how it is. But I love theme parks, and I figured it would be fun to like talk about theme park stuff as we get closer to Disney. Now, you might be watching this on YouTube, you might be listening to it on podcast services. Either way, well, I guess not either way. If you are watching it on YouTube, someone asked me earlier today, like, oh my gosh, Lily, you're going to Disneyland. Are you streaming when you're there? And the answer is yes. I will be streaming as much as I possibly can while I am there. So that is going to be pretty much everything except dark rides, like the rides that are in the dark, like, I can't stream on Space Mountain. As much as I would love to have my phone out, it not only is it dangerous for myself and others, it also it ruins the ride to have like a phone out. So, anyways, the point is that not only will I be streaming live on TikTok while I'm there, I will also be posting the recordings of those streams here on YouTube. And if you're on podcast services, I don't post audio. If y'all really want, let me know if you want me to do audio. I don't think you want that, right? You probably want the video. Okay. Anyways, theme parks. I've been thinking about Disney a lot lately because I love theme parks. And I figured, ahead of things before we're there, let me talk to you about my love for theme parks so that you can get an idea for where I'm at before we touch down in Anaheim, California soon. So, a little history about me. I was born in Georgia, Columbus, Georgia. And even then, we went to theme parks quite a bit. Georgia is not too far from Florida. I think there was a couple times we drove from where we were down to Florida. But once I turned like 10 or 11, we moved to Florida, to Sarasota. Okay, now Sarasota is like an hour and a half from Orlando, which is where Disney World is. Okay, so for a good portion of my childhood, I was a stone's throw away from Disney. Okay, ooh, that's a good one. By the way, if you don't know what electrolysis is, my electrologist is putting a poker inside of my follicle and zapping it, zap, 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 with electricity so that the follicle doesn't ever grow hair again, which is the goal, so I can get bottom surgery. But that's neither here nor there. I lived very close to Disney for a long time. Um, I went there, as on like family days, family trips. Me and my family would go sometimes. There was like a lot of school trips that would happen, and it wasn't just Disney, right? Because Florida, Orlando is kind of like theme park central. They have Disney, and Disney World consists of 4 or 5 parks. Let's see if I can name them. There's what's it called? Magic Kingdom, which is they've I think probably the closest analog to Disneyland in California, in that it has kind of like similar theming, and there's like the castle and stuff. Like the big Disney castle is there, and they've got Peter Pan and Small World and things like that. Um, but there's also, unlike California, there is Epcot in Disney World in Florida. Epcot, of course, um, if you're not familiar with the Epcot, I think is an acronym. I think it's an acronym. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But basically, Walt Disney had an obsession with like the future and like building the perfect society of the future. Excuse the sirens in the background. They're not coming for me, probably. Probably not. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Oh, okay. We're good. Uh, anyways, Epcot, of course, the city of the future, basically was meant to be like a showcase for what the world hopefully would be, like that it was going to be a city, right? And that's like a multicultural city. That's why Epcot has all of the countries in it. One of the big, probably the most notable thing about Epcot is that half of the park is this. There's this big lake, and around the lake are countries, quote unquote. So you can like go in, and right on your left, as soon as you're there, you're in Mexico, right? They've got like it's like a pavilion, right? There's a restaurant, there's like shops, there's and all the people who are working there are from Mexico. Now, of course, does Epcot reduce and simplify a culture to its absolute most, like, sometimes stereotypical elements? Yes. Is that problematic? Sure. Do I love the Mexico ride? Yes. I love the ride. Cliff divers, you go and you can like you're in your little boat and you ride by the people who are eating like their food at the restaurant. You wave to them, they wave back. It's like, haha, I'm on the ride. And they're like, yeah, we're eating. It's like, cool, see you later, bye. It's fun. Now, they have other places as well. There's like, different variants of this. Not every country has a ride. Mexico has a ride. There also was a Norway ride, but I believe that got converted years ago into the Frozen ride. But I never rode the Frozen ride. I only ever rode it when it was the Norway ride, which was, again, you're in a boat, um, and you're like, there's a lot of trolls involved. There's like Viking stuff, if I remember. I think there's a little like drop, like a boat drop, which is always kind of fun and exciting when you're a kid and when you're an adult. I remember not liking the food in Norway because it's like a lot of cured fish, which I was not into as a child. There's Japan. Japan has a location. I don't think there's a ride in Japan or Morocco or England or I'm trying to think. There's at least one African country. I forget which one it is. But anyways, Epcot is awesome. Now, as I grew up, eventually I turned 21. I learned about a thing you can do called drinking around the world. Okay. Now, trigger warning for anyone who doesn't want to hear about alcohol. I, of course, am sober now, but I wasn't back then. So maybe like a couple minutes you want to skip forward. But um, drinking around the world is a game that you can play at Epcot where you go around like again Epcot. The country showcase is like a loop. You can start at one and like keep walking, and eventually you'll end back where you were. And pretty much every country has alcohol of some kind. And if you plan it out correctly and don't and pace yourself well, you can have by the time you come back, be having a party. And I only ever drank around the world once or twice, but I did it with my friend Timothy. And if you have watched other podcasts specifically or listened to specifically the couple of Dungeon Dragons podcasts I did with Timothy like a few months ago, that same Timothy, okay? And you know, I think there's different variants of drinking around the world. You can look it up. I'm sure a bunch of people have different ways of doing it, but Tim and I had this whole system where we're like, okay, we got to get a margarita in Mexico, and then sake in Japan, and then a beer in England. I mean, it wasn't that. I know that's not the order that Epcot goes in, but that was like the vibe that we went for. We had like the whole list. We are like, okay, we got to do this, and we also had challenges built in at each country. I don't remember any of them except for England. I remember that by the time we got to England, we were very intoxicated. But our challenge was in England that we had to go find one of the British team members there, cast members, I think they call them, and ask and it'd be like, hey, which one of our British accents is better? And whoever won like had to take a shot or lost had to take a shot. It was something fun like that. I don't know, but it was just a lot of fun, and I love Epcot. Sadly, there is no Epcot. Let me switch hands really quick. One sec. Sadly, there is no Epcot in California, but the other half of Epcot is similarly exciting. I think Epcot was kind of always my favorite park. There's Spaceship Earth, which is if you think of Epcot, if you have any image of it at all, you might be thinking of the big giant golf ball looking thing. That, of course, is a ride inside of it. It's not just an empty ball. It's a big ride called Spaceship Earth. Spaceship Earth, voiced by Judi Dench. She's the voice that like takes you through the ride. So it's her voice guiding you along this voyage through human history. And even though I think I've only ever been on the ride a couple times, that was never a go-to ride for me. In my adulthood, I've discovered that the song that goes over that ride is incredible. And it's like a 10-minute epic journey through it's so pleasing to the ears. So if you go on Spotify or whatever and type in Spaceship Earth, it's a Disney like picture of Mickey Mouse on the album art. You'll recognize it. Highly recommend. In fact, go ahead, pause this right now, go listen to that and come back. Ready? Welcome back. Right? Isn't that good? It's good, right? Like, oh, interesting. That flute solo, so good. So there's Spaceship Earth. There's also Test Track, which was probably, if you had asked me at 11 years old what my favorite ride was, I would have said Test Track. Test Track is one of the things that Disney has done over the years is they did this in the olden days. Now it's a little more subtle, but they would make partnerships with different companies. So it'd be like the blank ride sponsored by Dawn detergent, or like, come on the submarine ride sponsored by Underwater Solutions, whatever. Test Track is no different. I think it's been sponsored by several companies over the years. Currently, I think it's Chevrolet. Right now. Could be GMC. Might have been GMC first and then Chevrolet. I'm not sure. But Test Track is a ride where it's car themed, and specifically you are a test crash dummy. That's like the conceit of the ride, is that you are there to test the cars. So they're like, all right, you're going to go through like some zigs and zags, and you're in like a cool car ride vehicle. And, it's like bump, 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 bump. Oh, looks like your car hit some like, rocks, or, like you have to stop really quickly. Like, ah. And they fake you out with like, you're almost about to collide with another truck, but you don't. And then at the end of the ride, uh, it's like, okay, now we need to take you on the high speed test. And that's when you go outside of the building and you go like 65 miles an hour for like 30 seconds around the track. So that's like the highlight. That's the fun thing at the end. You get to speed around in the car. It's pretty fun. And I always like that because I just like the world building that it was doing, of like, yeah, we're testing these cars. It just had good vibes, and I enjoyed it. Um, Also, Soarin' is there, Soarin, like soaring, but Soarin'. Never been on Soarin'. When it was a newer ride when I was growing up. So the lines were always long, and even though I'd heard good things, I hate waiting in line. So I never went. Um, but Soarin' is in Disneyland, so that is one of my goals, is to ride Soarin' while I'm there. Um, One of the other things at Epcot is Mission Space. Okay, Mission Space is a. So I listen to this other podcast called Podcast the Ride. Okay, now if you know Podcast the Ride, um, first off, go and tell them that I want to be guesting on their content, because I love Podcast the Ride with my heart and soul, and it would make me so happy. And if you want to help me, like DM them or something, Podcast the Ride, just let them know Lily wants to be in your. Send them this podcast episode, even this time code. Be like, hey, Lily's shouting you out here. I love the good boys. Anyways, they hate Mission Space. Okay, that is like kind of one of their takes, is that Mission Space is a bad ride. Maybe hate is a strong word, but they have an episode about it where they just tear the ride to shreds. Now, I only rid it when I was in middle and high school. Um, Before I give my opinion, let me just tell you what it is. All right, the goal, or the story of the ride, as many rides have stories of, like, you're going into space, and like you're going to Mars. I guess that's all it is. It's like you're literally going to Mars or something. Um, the, you get in there, like the line that there's always like stories in the lines too, which is fun. You get to like learn about the ride before you get on, and that kind of thing. Hold on, let me adjust myself really quick. Um, Anyways, uh, you're going to Mars, and then you get into your spaceship, I guess, and they load you in, and everyone has a different role, which I don't think it really makes much of a difference. Like, one person is the pilot, so they get a joystick. Another person is the navigator or something like that, so they press like other buttons, and it tells you what buttons to press when. So it's not really like you just have to be paying attention. And I think you can either win or lose the ride. I think. I could be wrong here. Hold on. I think the thing gets pulled out a little bit. Oh, it's all good. Yeah, it keeps getting pulled out a little bit. There we go. Um, but most importantly, this ride. How to even describe this? Basically, if you picture the ride as like a big carousel. Now, it doesn't feel like it when you're inside, because you're in this like very cramped little box that has, like, the doors are closed, so you can't see the larger mechanism. But basically, you're on a big carousel. Your little pod is like hooked into the middle of a centrifuge, and they spin you around really fast, like really fast, so fast that they make that it like makes that it makes G-force happen that makes you feel like you're lifting off. Like, it's a pretty good illusion, because they time it so that it like shows you lifting off into space as the G-force is hitting you. Everything all right? Okay.
Just slow.
Cool.
I'm going to the side.
No, you're good. And the G-force hits you, and you're like, oh, you get pushed back into your seat. Now, when I was in middle and high school, And I think even when I wrote it once when I was drinking around the world with Tim, um, I enjoyed it. I guess I don't know. Maybe it was because my body was not. My body was definitely stronger then, and more able to take something like that. Now, in my weirdly, in the last 2 years, 3 years, I have become incredibly susceptible to motion sickness. Um, if I'm in an Uber, I'm getting sick. I'm getting, well, not like throwing up, hopefully, not yet, but I have had tough times in Ubers. So I have a feeling that if I were to go on mission space today, I wouldn't have a good time. That being said, I stand by the ride as a good ride. I enjoyed it. Um, Now, the only other thing you should know about Mission Space is that, if I'm not mistaken, when it originally opened, they overshot the G force a little bit, and I think a few people died, um, which is not good. They not good. Also, I think there's two way. Maybe it's not like this anymore, but you used to be able to ride the ride two different ways. You could either have like the easy version, where the G force is a little bit less and it's not like super intense, and then the one where it's like, yeah, hit me with the G force. I don't know. Anyways, I like mission space. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in Epcot. Soren, Epcot, Test Track. I think there's a Finding Nemo ride, or maybe it's a Little Mermaid ride. I forget. Anyways, that's Epcot. There's also Animal Kingdom, which is another park entirely. Point of shame, I've never been to Animal Kingdom. I don't really like zoos. Um, I don't like seeing animals caged up. I don't like it. I think it makes me sad to see animals in captivity. And I know that there's a certain level of like we save them from blank, but I just don't like it. And the same thing went for Busch Gardens, like, stepping away from Disney for a second. In Florida, there's a theme park called Busch Gardens. Busch as in like the beer Busch. They have a theme park. And it's like half zoo, half roller coaster park, which is an interesting mix. Um, I never did any of the zoo stuff. I never wanted to see the well, actually, no, they had this one like safari ride that was kind of cool, but I never did any of it. I always did the roller coasters. I did Montu, which was a fun one. Um, there's a wooden roller coaster there called Gwazi, which was basically like, hey, do you enjoy concussions? Well, have we got the ride for you? It's a wooden roller coaster that, like, I'm telling you, I don't think I ever walked off that coaster without some sort of head trauma, because it was so rickety. It really shouldn't have been allowed to, like, I can't imagine, like, the amount of damage to human bodies that ride has done over the years must be insanely high. Montu, like I mentioned, was a metal coaster, probably the most intense coaster they had a really fun drop at the beginning. Busch Gardens, if I'm not mistaken, also did they do Halloween stuff? I think they did. Anyways, we can talk about Busch Gardens later. Is there one other park? Yes, there's one other park at Disney. Uh, I guess at one point it was MGM Studios, but now it's Hollywood Studios. I think it got renamed, and Hollywood Studios was my favorite after Epcot. If we, sometimes we do like Saturday, Sunday at Disney, as a family or with friends, we'd take a trip. It would always be Epcot one day, MGM the other day, or Hollywood Studios the other day. Um, Hollywood Studios has a fun setup of rides. Now I'm talking about Hollywood Studios a decade or 15 years ago, because that's when I knew it best. I believe that now that's where Star Wars World is. I think Star Wars stuff is there now. I never been to it. Okay, so it's gonna be a first for me to see Star Wars stuff when we're in Disneyland. Um, but when I was there, the biggest two attractions were right next to each other. There was the Tower of Terror and the Rock and Roller Coaster. Okay, I'll tell you about the Tower of Terror first. These are maybe two of my favorite rides ever. Um, the Tower of Terror is, it's like a drop ride where you're seat belted in, and like you go up and then you fall down, and you go up and you fall down. You've seen these rides before. But the theming around this ride is so good. It's Twilight Zone themed. Okay? So when you start going through the line, it's very spooky. Um, the whole idea is that it's a hotel, and you go through the line and you're in a hotel lobby. And I'm telling you, everything's covered in cobwebs. It's like 1927 or something. So everything is very old looking, down to the details of the phones around, like the couches. It almost kind of has the Shining vibes, even though I know that was the 70s. But even then, there's still like kind of 30s vibes from the Shining too. Um, and all the people who are working there are wearing hotelier costumes, like the burgundy with like lapels and like the almost like fez type hats, and they're playing along too, and they're like, welcome to is it the not the Overlook, that's the Shining, what's it called? I forget there's a name for the hotel, but anyways, you walk in and there's a pre-ride. So they kind of shepherd you along, and you're in a room and the lights go dim and they play a little movie for you. And that's when Rod Serling comes in. Okay. Now, I don't know if they used footage from Rod Serling from the Twilight Zone. They must have repurposed it because he looked young. And they set up the episode as, okay, there were this like group of people that went into an elevator, and then lightning hit the tower, and they all got electrocuted and turned into ghosts. And then the like elevator dropped. Okay. So you then go through the second line, which is in the boiler room, like kind of it's getting creepier. Okay. No more sunlight, no more light. You're just like, yeah, it's creepy. And they put you into an elevator and you go through this ride, which is actually like pretty cool. Like you go through the Twilight Zone theme song, you're like moving forward, backwards, all these different things. And then of course you do the dropping. And it's very fun and exciting, but honestly, that's not even the best part. The best part is just the vibes of the ride. It's very good. Um, Now, right next to the Tower of Terror is the Rock and Roller Coaster, which is Aerosmith's coaster. The band Aerosmith has their own roller coaster. Um, the conceit of the ride is that you are a fan, I think, touring the Aerosmith music studio, maybe, because you go through and it's like music stuff as you make your way in. A lot like you hear pretty much every Aerosmith song in line, or at least all the popular ones. And then, much like the Twilight Zone, they bring you into a pre-ride show where you're standing in a recording studio and the whole band Aerosmith is there, like holograms kind of, as is their quote unquote manager. And they're just finishing up a record, of course. And Steven Tyler, the lead singer of the band, looks down and is like, whoa, hey everyone, thanks for visiting. We got to get to a show, but like we want to bring you to the show. And the manager's like, but wait, there's so many of them. And they're like, yeah, call a limo. And it's like, okay, but we got to get you there to the show fast. That's the conceit of the show. One fun fact about that pre-show video that, again, I learned on Podcast The Ride. Steven Tyler, at a certain point in the video, puts his hand on his forehead to like peer out into the crowd. Now, if you're watching the YouTube video, you might be able to see I'm kind of doing the shocker with my fingers. He just like slipped it into the video. You know the shocker? The shocker, here, let me show you. I'll do it with my other hand. It's this. You know what this is? Okay, so I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube, but 2 fingers and then 1 finger. You get what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
You understand? There's a phrase for it as well. But Steven Tyler just like did this, and it's like a if you know kind of thing. But whoever was filming this video in the 90s or whatever didn't realize that that's what Steven Tyler was doing. He was just being a prankster or whatever, and it made it into the video because no one caught it. So for years, Steven Tyler, maybe months, you could just see him do the shocker sign on his forehead on a ride for kids. And it became like this kind of if you know joke. Like, hey, that's because no one's going to notice it unless they know what that is, and kids aren't going to know what that is. Eventually, Disney caught wind and decided to do away with it, but they couldn't just refilm the whole thing. So they digitally painted Steven Tyler's ring finger back on so that he's not doing the shocker anymore. Fun fact. Anyways, you then go into like the final line, and you're in a back alleyway, kind of like, somewhere in a city, like a happening city. There's a back alleyway, and the limo comes up. That's the ride vehicle, is the limo. And you get in, and maybe the coolest start to any ride ever is you kind of like are on the precipice. You're about to go into the ride, and there's speakers behind your head where Steven Tyler's voice comes on, and he goes like, "Are you ready? 3, 2, 1." And then as soon as he says go, a randomized Aerosmith song comes on. And instead of it just like being a slow start, you go from like 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds or something. It blasts you off into the ride, and you're just off to the races. And it's a great coaster. And the coaster itself there's like street signs and stuff. It's kind of like neon 90s fun, like, oh, you're going to the street sign, you're passing by the park, you're almost there at the show, and then the ride ends and you're on the red carpet. Like, it's a cool little thing. It's a fun coaster. So yeah, that's the Rock and Roller Coaster. Also at Hollywood Studios, formerly MGM Studios, is I don't think it's there anymore, but there used to be like a big giant hat, like Mickey's the Sorcerer. Is that what? When Mickey's wearing like the blue hat from Fantasia, he has a name. Sorcerer? I don't know. There used to be a big hat, and underneath you could buy a bunch of pins, like Disney trading pins. I've never been in the pin trading game, but I know people are really into it. There's also Star Wars stuff. Now, it is my understanding that all the Star Wars stuff is there now, including Rise of the Resistance, which is kind of like the big ride with Kylo Ren and stuff, and also the Millennium Falcon ride. But again, I've never been on either of these. And for many years, the only Star Wars that was in any Disney park, and this is also before Star Wars was even owned by Disney. Star Wars was still in the park in the form of Star Tours. Okay? If you know Star Tours, you know Star Tours. But it's been around for a while. They've updated it many times, but it's kind of in the name, where the whole thing of the ride is that you are a galactic tourist and you get kind of pulled into a little adventure with some droid. Now, I think it's C-3PO now. I don't know. They've changed it over the years. It used to be just a random droid, but you would go through the line, which was all Star Wars themed and very exciting. And then you'd buckle into kind of what felt like a little mini theater. And there was like, you're like in this little car kind of that could like shake around and move. It was pretty low intensity, and I don't remember what it was at the time. It changed over the years, but like, oh, we're just gonna go in our little tour bus to see the blah blah blah. Oh no, it's the rebels are here. What? Oh, we have to run. It's like, like all these rides, you need a reason to get you into danger and then get you out of danger and have you save the day or whatever. Star Tours is pretty fun. I mean, not a particularly exciting ride compared to, the other two that I just described to you, but like, especially in the days when we didn't have any sort of Star Wars rides, it did the trick. There was also, I'm trying to think what else there was in the Hollywood Studios didn't have much else going on. There was like a Drew Carey show that now I think is the Jimmy Fallon show, where it's kind of like a theater thing. And you go in, it's like 3D or whatever. I want to say the Muppet 3D was also there in Hollywood Studios, which was fine. I think there was a stunt show or like a water show there. That's the thing. Epcot had way more going on than Hollywood Studios. Hollywood you could do in a half day. It was fine. But yeah, so that was kind of like my Disney experience as a kid. And we also did a lot of Universal. Universal was just as important to me growing up. We had and Universal had 2 parks as well. There was the Universal Studios proper, and then there was also what's it called? uh, Islands of Adventure. Okay, and these two parks, of course, are flanked by something called City Walk, right? City Walk Orlando. You ever been to City Walk? You've been to Hollywood? Have you been to like Disneyland? Okay, you know how there's like shops and stuff around? Yeah, it's kind of like what if there was a mall outside Disneyland or Disney World? And that's the version of it. There's City Walk in Orlando. So when I was there, there was like a big Hard Rock Hotel, a Hard Rock Cafe, and like a Rainforest Cafe. I remember there was an Emerald Lagasse had a restaurant in, I guess, was it City Walk? I think it was City Walk. Yeah, yeah. And I remember we went as a family once. It was very good. We really enjoyed that. There's like performances sometimes. There's also a store called Fresh Produce, which my mom loved. And looking back, I don't think I think the brand still exists. It's a clothing store. It sounds like it would be a food store, but it's not. It is not. It was like it's kind of hard to describe. I guess you could Google it, fresh produce clothes, but it's like kind of brightly colored. There's like pastels. There's a lot of like fruit design to it. It's not like food themed clothing, but it's kind of like the clothes that you might want to wear when you're on vacation. Like if you're like on the beach in Florida, walking back from the beach to your whatever, like fresh produce clothes are you're gonna fit that bill. Um, but yeah, so I really enjoyed City Walk, but Islands of Adventure versus Universal Studios, they both had a lot going on, and in some ways they were more exciting than Disney. I I would venture to say that I did more Universal than Disney on the whole, just because I think it was there's just a little bit more going on. Even though I like the vibes of Disney better as an adult, um, when you go into Universal Studios, one of the first things that you see is, I guess it changed over the years. There was a Hanna Barbera ride. I think that turned into SpongeBob eventually, or the Jetsons maybe. I think the Jetsons. No, the Jetsons would have been in the Hanna Barbera. But most importantly, there was the Mummy ride. Like that was the first thing you see when you went to Universal Studios. That was probably my favorite ride, one of my favorite rides, period, but probably the best ride at Universal Studios, with the exception of one we'll get to soon. And one of the reasons I'm very excited to go on the Indiana Jones ride when I'm in Disneyland, because I think they're probably pretty similar. Um, the Mummy, of course, based on the 90s Brendan Fraser movie, The Mummy, where, there's what if there was a mummy, right? That's what it's about. It says it in the name. Uh, it's cool. You go through and it's like ancient Egypt themed, and you get on the ride. But it's also, I think, kind of couched as like it might be a studio tour. I think that's what it is. I think it's like welcome to the backstage Mummy tour. But they're like, hey, we're going to tell you about the movie The Mummy. And Brendan Fraser is like, yeah, it was pretty cool making the movie The Mummy. But and like videos you watch as you're walking through the line. But I think there are certain things where like a mummy hand hands him his coffee or something, and you're like, wait a minute, is this the backstage tour or is the mummy actually here? Because that's kind of what Universal Studios was conceived as, was a um, like behind the scenes of the movies. That's what the theme park is about, Universal Studios. So the mummy ride kind of honors that. But once you get on the ride, um, I think it's like showing you the mummy kind of coming back and like, no, turn back. You're not supposed to be here, blah, blah, blah. And there's like these beetles that come out on a 3D screen, which is very gross and creepy. The first half of the ride is kind of just like you're moving around, you're seeing different things happen, there's story happening. And then, it ratchets up and you're running from the mummy and it stops. And it's like, all right, good job on the mummy ride, everyone. All right, everyone exit to your right. But it's a silhouette of someone who's like controlling the ride. And then you see the mummy like suck the life out of that person. It's like a fake out. The ride hasn't actually ended. And then the mummy, like the ceiling lights on fire, and the mummy like looks at you and is like, death is only the beginning. And then you shoot off, and the second half of the ride is a roller coaster. So that's very fun and cool. So the mummy was always a highlight. We always rode that one a lot. Um, there's also a ride next to it Again, this might not be here anymore. I think they might have replaced it with Fast and Furious, which is notably known to be a pretty bad ride. But it was I think it's called Disaster. The ride was called Disaster or something like that. And again, it was like a backstage tour. You go on there and there's someone who's like, all right, who wants to be on like TV and like come on this green screen, and they like pick a kid from the audience who would go up there and like be on green screen and pretend to be in rainy weather or something. It was cute and fun. It was like a little fun show. And then they'd say, okay, now we're going to show you how like a flood feels or something. And you go on a little cart, and I forget exactly how it works, but it's pretty cool. Like you're in like this room that simulates a flood. Like it all like a whole bunch of water comes rushing out. There's a bunch of fire. It's pretty intense. It's actually pretty scary. I'd go on that one just for fun. That was interesting. I think the Great Movie Ride is also around here. I want to say. I think that. Call me out if I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure the Great Movie Ride was also around there. Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. You got to go in there. Um, the Great Movie Ride being like an homage to great movies, and you just kind of zoom through different fun film sets from Indiana Jones to like Alien to Casablanca and stuff. And it was like fine. It was fun. It was a cool little homage to the movies. The Jaws ride was also here, right? Jaws? That wasn't Disney, was it? Was Jaws at Disney? I might be mixing these up, but I'm pretty sure the Jaws ride was around here. And like the whole area was Jaws themed, kind of like almost like San Francisco Pier themed. Um, I only went on the Jaws ride a couple times, but you're in a little boat and you're running from Jaws basically. And they had a cool like Jaws shark that would come up and bite your boat or something. And they had a tour guide for that one who would shoot the shark. So it was kind of like, there's actors in the ride, and those are always fun. Um, but of course, the most important ride, and maybe my favorite ride of all time, is the Men in Black Alien Attack ride in Universal Studios. I'm sure this one is in Universal because I've been on it a million times. I don't think I've been on any ride more than this. One of the reasons I've been able to ride it so much is because more than most rides, this ride has a very quick moving single rider's line. And if you're with a friend or two, you want to take the single riders because it doesn't matter if you're together or not, really. Um, the whole thing of the ride is that you are training, I think, to be an agent for the whatever Men in Black organization it is. And they're like telling you, okay, here's your like little training gun, here's your laser thing, and aim at the training simulations and fire, and like don't press this big red button whatever you do, wink wink. And then you get on the ride and you have like a little laser thing, and it opens and it's like, okay, like fake aliens, shoot at the aliens. Go. Oh wait, no, we got to go into the city. And then of course, like all rides, oh, the thing we planned isn't happening, we got to go destroy some aliens. There's actually. And then you go through in your little cart and you shoot at aliens, and you have a little score meter there that keeps track of how well you're doing, like how many aliens you shoot. And certain aliens are worth more than others. So there's this whole second layer, this meta to the game that isn't present in most rides, because most rides aren't a game like that. There's the Buzz Lightyear one. I don't know enough about that one, but from what I can tell, this just does a better job at it. So you got to be accurate. You got to be like knowing what aliens to shoot at and what not to shoot at. And at the end of the ride, there's a big alien. You got to press the big red button at the right time, of course, to get the 100,000 point bonus or something. But you get a different ending based on how well you do. Right? If you do poorly, you'll get your memory wiped by Will Smith, and like, good luck, try again next time, or good job, try again next time, or tough luck. That's what I mean. But then there's also a middle one where it's just like, okay, you did fine, whatever. But then if you do really well, they spin you around in the other direction, and you get a suit, like a Men in Black suit. So it's like, yeah, we beat. Oh, that's a tough one. We beat the ride. So, I've beaten the ride several times. It's just fun. It's just a fun ride. And it's got replay value because if you don't do as well as you want, just go back and do it again. And you can just keep going on it. And again, the line isn't that short. So I remember me and my friend in like middle of high school, we'd go and just ride that thing all day long. And I remember one time we met some guy in the line who he was there on his own, but apparently every year would travel with his forum, like online theme park nerd friends, to all get one cart together and everyone get the maxed out score. Like that, it was like an annual pilgrimage for them. And we learned so many tips and tricks from this person about where to shoot, the timing, all this stuff that, and it improved our game so much that's where we really developed a love for the ride because we didn't realize how much was going on that they didn't even tell you about that you got to figure out on your own. So yeah, Men in Black, what a ride. Mm, so much fun. There was also the formerly Back to the Future. I don't know if it's still The Simpsons. It might not be The Simpsons anymore, but there's Simpsons Land there where it's kind of just like a screen ride. You're in a car, you kind of fly around and stuff. It wasn't that great. I'm also not that much of a Simpsons fan, so whatever. I don't remember that much. There's also, or at least used to be, a Terminator ride, more of like a show, where you go in and it's a 3D show where you have to wear glasses, and I'm pretty sure the kid who plays John Connor in Terminator 2 is in it, and I don't know if Arnold's in it, maybe, but they have someone who pretends to be Arnold. There's like an Arnold actor who like dresses up like the Terminator, so that's kind of cool. And I remember there being like a scare with the seats where the seats drop a little bit, but mostly it's just you're sitting in the theater, so that's pretty fun. Um, yeah, and I'm trying to think. I don't think there's much else at Universal Studios. There's Islands of Adventure though, which honestly was kind of my favorite. I'd like hit the Mummy and Men in Black a couple times, but then go to Universal Studios because you walk in there, or not, or Islands of Adventure. I mean, Islands of Adventure has the Hulk. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, doesn't Disney own Marvel now? The answer is yes, but before they bought Marvel, Universal Studios had some Marvel characters, had like license for some of them, and they built a park based off of it. So there is a Spider-Man ride there. There is a Hulk ride, but they're not like the same Hulk or Spider-Man as the Disney ones, if that makes sense. They're the comic book ones, which are different. I don't know. The Hulk is a really great roller coaster. Another one of those rides, much like the Aerosmith ride, which just shoots you off like a rocket. There's no like, slow start. You just go. Same thing with the Hulk, where you are sitting in the roller coaster. It is of course green. You're in Bruce Banner's lap, and you're going up like slowly in the tube, and you hear a voice. And if you've never been on it before, they try to fake you out by making you think that it's not a part of the ride, but actually a like actual emergency that's happening. Oh no, 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 no. They're like, oh, in your the voice in the speaker. No, no, this is actually no. This shouldn't get no. Stop the code. Stop things now. Stop. And then of course, boom, blasts you off. So again, if it's your first time, you're like, wait a minute, is there actually something broken? No, there's not. It's all good. It's all part of it. And it blasts you off, and it's this huge, huge roller coaster. A lot of fun. There's like a mist tunnel too. It's pretty cool. And then right next to it is, of course, the Spider-Man ride, which is also a bona fide classic. Uh, I remember the line to Spider-Man being I think it's the Daily Bugle, which is where Spider-Man works, and you're walking through the Daily Bugle because J. Jonah Jameson is your point of you hear a lot from J. Jonah Jameson, the gruff like, get me pictures of Spider-Man, that guy. Um, you make your way through the Daily Bugle, and you get into, I think, like a journalist truck of some kind, and they're like, all right, you're going to go and follow Spider-Man or something like that, and you have 3D glasses, and Spider-Man finds you, and you get to like hang out with Spider-Man, and he's fighting all the different villains, and you're going through, and you start falling at one point. There's like a drop, and Spider-Man saves you, and there's a lot of cool effects. The one I remember most is there's a I forget what his name is. The guy who has like an electric gun. I don't know what his name is, but what is it? Didn't Jamie Foxx play him in the movies? Electro, maybe. Anyways, he has this like electricity gun, and the way that they do it, the way that they like simulate the effect, is they have these like heat blasters, kind of like hot air that they blow at you to make it feel like you're getting blasted by this thing. It's pretty cool. It's very fun, and yeah, and like the 3D effects are good. It's a very 90s ride, but in a good way, and it's fun. Um, those are probably the two best rides, in my opinion. There now, towards the end of my time at going to Universal Studios growing up, like later on in high school, the last few years. Oh, that is a good one. Talk about my electrolysis. The Sorry to bring them up, but Harry Potter became a part of the Universal Studios thing. Hogwarts or Hogsmeade or whatever it was um, opened, and it was a big part of Universal Studios. Still is. Still one of the biggest things they have. They of course have the Hogwarts ride. Now in high school, back in the you know 09, 2010, 2011, we didn't know. We didn't know that J.K. Rowling would eventually become the person she is today. Like we had no idea. Um, if anything, at the time, she was like just randomly announced that Dumbledore was gay, and we were like, "Oh, okay, cool, great." Anyways, so I have spent a good amount of time at that Harry Potter thing. I wouldn't go now; I would avoid it, but I did go before, and I think there's also now Harry Potter stuff in Universal Studios, but I wasn't around for that. But I went on the ride, the main ride they have there. It was well done. I mean, it was cool. You like fly through Harry Potter stuff. I mean, really, the main cool thing about Harry Potter world is the shopping, because there's just so much cool merchandise in the Harry Potter world. So much candy, so much like food, butterbeer, wands. They have the wand experience. Oh God, I enjoy it. I used to love that stuff so much. Now I just can't even. I can't with it. It's not. I'm not. I don't allow myself anymore. I can't. J.K. Rowling is such a pox, such a she is one of probably the loudest transphobes in the world. She has a lot of followers. Anytime she says something, it makes news. She is, and she created Harry Potter, which has done a lot of good in the world. But generally speaking, I think she is a net negative on the world just from what she does and what she says. Anyways, um, Harry Potter is there. I think there's a Hagrid's roller coaster there now, which again I wasn't around for. That was a little bit later. Um, but yeah, so I'm trying to think. There's also a Popeye or like a Toontown, something like that, where there's a Popeyes ride, which is like a rafting ride. So you're in a little boat, but it's more like a raft. It's like a big circle, and like there's a thing in the middle you hold on to, and you bounce through river rapids. That ride is notable for just absolutely soaking you. There is no you do not get out of that ride anything other than soaking wet, which in Florida can be a good thing. When it's like 100 degrees outside and you're really hot and you want to cool off, it's very nice. So I enjoyed the Popeyes ride. Um, is there anything else? I feel like, yeah, is Dueling Dragons? Was Dueling Dragons Universal, or was it Busch Gardens? I think it was Universal. I think Dueling Dragons has been converted into like a Triwizard Tournament ride, maybe. But it was a fun roller coaster. Another fun roller coaster there. Or maybe that's Busch Gardens. I don't know. I mixed these things up. But yeah, that's Islands of Adventure. And then of course you've got City Walk, which is like a nice, if you want to get dinner or food before or after. That's fun. But yeah, so that's been my experience with theme parks. at least growing up. I mean, Busch Gardens is another one. We were at Busch Gardens a lot because I think it was a little bit cheaper, and just fun, especially in high school because I loved roller coasters back then. I still kind of do, but I haven't been on them in a while. Um, and then, of course, there's also like we would go to Busch Gardens for field trips in particular. I don't know why we'd go there more than I don't know why. They had I mean, they had good rides there. We enjoyed Busch Gardens. It was a little bit less. I think it was probably the price point. I bet it was just cheaper there. Ooh, ow! Oh, it's good. It's good. Keep it going. Feels good. So looking forward, um, Disneyland. Never been. I have. It's all good. I have looked at a map and kind of gone through all of the rides there. Indiana Jones is one I'm super looking forward to. Also, Pirates of the Caribbean. Those are probably the top two because I don't know. I just like that action adventure vibe, kind of like old timey. Yeah. Um, I guess I'm most excited. I haven't been to a theme park. Certainly not pre-transition. Post-transition, I've been to a theme park, and so I'm excited to experience all of the gender euphoria that I've missed out on from theme parks over the years, namely looking cute in a theme park, because I want to look cute in the theme park, y'all. Okay. I want to wear mini ears. I want to have a cute outfit. I want to I want to shop while I'm there. I want to buy cute things. I want to eat cute, fun food. Um, and the last time I was at a theme park would have been my early 20s, maybe a decade ago. And at that point, my goal was mostly just drinking, I guess, and going on rides. And that's not at all my intention here. Obviously, not drinking, but even, I want to go on rides and I've paid for like the fast pass. I think it's called Genie now. So I can sign up to like show up at a ride at a certain point, at a certain time. Um, but honestly, I'm mostly excited to like experience the thing I like most about theme parks, which is vibes. I want to feel the magic. I know it sounds silly and like, but it's true. Like I like being it's like a happy bubble. Someone on stream today described it as a happy bubble, and I agree. It's what it feels like. The food is a big part of it. I've become way more of a foodie since I last was there. We're going to spend a lot of time eating. I would maybe even more than rides. It's just going to be like getting food here, trying this, trying that, all these different things. Um, but in terms of rides, I want to go on some of the like, you know, Little Mermaid ride or whatever, things like that. The Winnie the Pooh ride. I think there's a Snow White dwarf ride, things like that. There's a Pixar coaster which kind of looks cool. There's Small World I wouldn't mind going on. There's a Guardians of the Galaxy thing in California Adventure that looks cool. There's Soarin' I'd like to go on. I really want to spend a good amount of time in the Star Wars area, like maybe like 2, 3, 4 hours there. Like spend a good amount of time because there's just so much shopping to be had, and I have so much shopping that I want to do. I want to build my lightsaber. I want to go on. There's two different rides there. There's a Millennium Falcon ride, and there's a the Rise of the Resistance, which are rides that I've ridden both of them on YouTube before. And again, if you can go on YouTube and quote unquote ride any ride, there are people who will bring GoPros into these rides and just strap them to their head and get very high definition recording of the rides. And I don't think it's against the rules. So you can pretty much experience it virtually. And it's awesome. So I've ridden pretty much all the rides that I'll go on, but I've just never ridden them in person. So that'll be fun. What else is there? I mean, that's kind of California Adventure. I'm trying to think. Yeah, and so my next step will be to research restaurants because I don't know what restaurants we're going to go to. I'm going to probably do, I think that the app will allow you to plan your day ahead of time. So even though we can, when we're streaming there, let the wind take us wherever we want to go. I think to a certain extent, it'll be helpful to have like a general, like, I want to hit this and this and this, especially when it comes to ride times, because you know, I'll be able to say, yeah, I want to ride blank ride Rise of the Resistance at 6:15 p.m. And then, we can do whatever we want between 3 and 6, but at 6 I can show up and just get on the ride. Right? So that'll be nice. Yeah, just very excited. Everything is coming together. I'm thrilled. So again, we will be streaming. I will only turn the stream off when it's not appropriate to have a camera, which is really just like a couple rides here and there. Hopefully, my thinking is that I'll keep the stream on until like it doesn't make sense to have it on again. Like in the line, it makes perfect sense how to be streaming. But once I like get, I can't just like have my phone out on Space Mountain because I don't want to be that person, but also I want to enjoy it. I want to be in the moment. So, anyways, thank you for listening. I hope you're having a good day. I am excited to stream at Disney. I'm not sharing the date. One day I will just pop up and be at Disney World or Disneyland. It's just a safety thing. But once I'm there, you'll know. So anyways, love you. Thank you to all of my TikTok and Patreon supporters. If you want to join the Discord server, which is a very happening community, 24/7 online fun and games and support and love, all these things, you can either subscribe to me on TikTok or patreon.com/lilytino. It's $10 a month in both places. You get access to the Discord, which regardless of whichever subscription you pick. Patreon, technically, I get a couple. Well, not a couple. TikTok takes 100%, or not 100%, 50% of your subscription. So $10 a month on TikTok is $5 for me. On a Patreon, your $10 a month translates to about $9 for me. So even though, Patreon is technically nicer, I'd prefer you go there. I get TikTok's easier. So either one. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for listening. And until next time, stay lovely.